It's just human nature to want to fix things when they break.
Oh, absolutely. We're hardwired for it.
Right, like you drop your phone, the screen shatters, you take it to the shop.
Yeah, or your car engine starts making that terrifying clicking noise.
Ah, I hate that noise. But yeah, you take it to the mechanic, we look at a problem, we diagnose it, and then we just pour our absolute best energy into repairing it.
Which works great for cars and phones.
Exactly. But here's the thing, and this is what we're getting into today. When you take that exact same fix-it mentality and apply it to highly narcissistic people, you do not fix the problem.
No, you really don't.
You usually just end up breaking yourself in the process.
That is such a crucial point.
Yeah.
Right, the good stuff. Those actually become the very weapons used against us in toxic dynamics. Navigating reality with critical thinking, recognizing what is actually happening right in front of you, that becomes the ultimate form of self-preservation.
Well, today is May 2, 2026, and welcome to the Deep Dive. We are unpacking the work of Frank Vasquez today, and we're doing something radically different with this one.
Yes, we are.
We are completely abandoning the idea of understanding the toxic people in your life.
Just dropping it entirely.
Exactly. We are not sitting here trying to figure out the childhood trauma that made a narcissist act the way they do. We're pivoting 100% of our energy into protecting you.
And that is a huge shift for a lot of people listening.
It really is. I mean, think about the last time you typed out a 4-paragraph text message defending your intentions, just pouring your heart out, only to get a one-word dismissive reply.
Oh, the dreaded K.
Right, and you get that physical knot in your stomach, that absolute emotional drain. Well, that is what we are learning to turn off today.
What's fascinating here is how the best parts of human nature are exactly what keep people anchored in those exhausting situations.
Wait, say more about that, the best parts.
Yeah, because we have this listener question that illustrates it perfectly. It's from Alyssa in Phoenix, and she asks why she feels so foolish for staying so long. But the truth is, people usually do not get trapped in these narcissistic dynamics because they are weak or, gullible.
Right.
They get trapped because they care. You stay because you are compassionate.
Yeah.
Or you have real dependencies, maybe shared finances or maybe children. So you think, if I am just a little more patient, if I can just explain my side a little more clearly, they will finally see my perspective and things will get better.
But, let me push back on that for a second. Isn't giving the benefit of the doubt just basic human decency?
How do you mean?
Like, if someone snaps at me, my first instinct is usually to assume they're just having a rough day. I don't immediately assume they were, launching a psychological attack on me. It feels almost cynical to jump to the worst conclusion about someone you love.
Sure, and in a healthy relationship, giving the benefit of the doubt is the grease that keeps the wheels turning.
Right, everybody has bad days.
Exactly. A healthy partner snaps, they realize they were wrong, they apologize, and the behavior changes. But the critical distinction in Vasquez's material is the timeline. You have to zoom out and look at the demonstrable pattern.
The pattern, okay.
Yeah, a bad day is an isolated incident.
Yeah.
But when day after day, month after month, you're having your feelings dismissed, your reality twisted, your energy completely drained, that is no longer a string of bad days. That is a structural feature of the relationship.
Okay, let's unpack this, because that is a massive perspective shift. We have to stop viewing each argument as a separate, isolated misunderstanding.
Right, you have to see the whole board.
Because calling a consistent pattern of disrespect a small misunderstanding every single time, that's just a form of self-deception, isn't it?
It is. The psychological mechanism at play here is cognitive dissonance. You're constantly trying to reconcile the person you fell in love with or the parent you desperately want to believe you have with the person standing right in front of you causing you pain.
Wow, yeah.
True protection begins the absolute second you stop downplaying the reality of that pattern.
So what does this all mean for your immediate tactical response? Like, once you have that light bulb moment and realize you're dealing with a repeating toxic pattern, how do you protect yourself without accidentally pouring gasoline on the fire?
Right, because that's the immediate fear.
Exactly. And this brings us to a strategy that is completely counterintuitive to everything we're taught about healthy communication. This actually addresses a question we got from Mateo from Argentina. And the advice is simply this: the best defense is saying less, not more.
Which is so hard to do. Our instinct when we feel misunderstood is to explain ourselves more thoroughly.
Oh, 100%.
We're convinced that if we just find the perfect combination of words, the other person will have this grand epiphany. But with an opportunistic, highly narcissistic personality, Over-explaining is the most dangerous thing you can do.
Yeah, it's like trying to untangle a knotted string by aggressively pulling at the ends. You think you are working the problem out, but you just make the knot tighter and tighter. To fix it, you actually have to stop pulling entirely.
That is a perfect analogy, because that string only gets tighter since opportunistic personalities thrive on that extra slack.
Right.
Every single word you use to explain your feelings is just more conversational ammunition for them. The psychological term for this is word salad.
Word salad, yes, I've heard that.
They are not listening to understand your pain. They are scanning your explanation for a vulnerability. They'll take your long, heartfelt explanation, ignore the main point entirely, latch onto one minor detail from 3 years ago, twist the logic, and then redirect the blame entirely back onto you.
Yes. And you end up apologizing for the fact that you brought up the thing that they did wrong in the first place. It is incredibly maddening.
It really is.
You start a conversation saying, it hurt my feelings when you belittled me at dinner, and 30 minutes later, you are somehow crying and apologizing for your tone of voice.
And that is by design. This is designed to wear you down. Your anxiety spikes because you're trapped in a circular argument where reality is constantly shifting.
And there's that energy drain we were talking about.
Exactly. So your immediate mission is to starve that dynamic of oxygen. You refuse to argue in circles. You refuse to provide the emotional reaction they are looking for to validate their control.
So the actionable takeaway here is utilizing the power of the absolute shortest, simplest answers.
Yes. Keep it brief.
Stating things like, no, or that doesn't work for me, I remember it differently, or just, I need some space right now. But I have to say, for a lot of people listening, offering a response that blunt without a comforting paragraph of explanation attached to it, that feels incredibly rude.
Oh, it feels rude because you've been conditioned by this person to over-accommodate just to keep the peace. You have been trained to believe that having a boundary is an aggressive act.
Wow, yes, conditioned.
But giving a short, firm response is finding your stand. You're no longer handing over your entire emotional state every time they decide to push one of your buttons. You're providing zero surface area for them to attack.
Which naturally transitions us into the concept of boundaries. But there is a really vital distinction here about what a boundary actually looks like in practice. Because saying the words, well, that's only the first 10% of the process.
Right. A boundary isn't just something you say out loud. A boundary is something you live by.
Yes.
A boundary without enforcement is just a suggestion. If you tell someone, please do not speak to me that way, and then you stand there and continue to absorb their disrespect for another 20 minutes, you are actively teaching them that your words carry no weight.
You're showing them where the line really is.
Exactly. What makes a boundary real is the physical action you take to protect yourself when the line is crossed.
The source material offers an incredibly practical example of this called the Lenner method, and it deals with toxic family dynamics.
This is such a great tool.
It really is. Imagine a narcissistic parent who constantly criticizes you or your spouse during visits. You know the drill. You try to be polite. You try changing the subject. You try explaining how their words hurt you.
Then nothing changes.
Nothing. The pattern just repeats, and you leave every visit feeling completely depleted.
Because face-to-face confrontation fails in these scenarios. Narcissistic individuals use tone, volume, and rapid-fire topic switching to maintain dominance in a room.
The word salad again.
Right. They can manufacture chaos much faster than you can process it.
So the strategy is to just stop playing the game on their home turf. When the derogatory comments start, you do not launch into a monologue about respect.
No over-explaining.
Right. You simply shorten the visit, you calmly pack up your things, and you leave. And then you write a letter or an email explaining exactly why you will not be visiting anymore if the toxic comments do not stop. The brilliance of this is staggering, because you can't argue with a letter.
You really can't. It completely neutralizes their ability to use real-time manipulation.
Yeah.
When you put a boundary in writing, you freeze the narrative. You remove the immediate emotional volatility of a face-to-face argument, and you leave them with a static set of facts.
Which they hate, by the way.
They despise it. The next time you see them, you simply ask if they received the letter. If they mock it, or if there is no initiative on their end to adjust their behavior, well, you have your answer.
Yeah.
Refusing to subject yourself to that environment isn't cruelty. It is character integrity and emotional self-preservation.
There's another scenario Vasquez covers that shifts from family to romance, and it highlights a massive red flag that is so easy to miss when you're falling for someone.
Oh, the early relationship red flags, yes.
It involves a new romantic partner who is constantly checking your phone, questioning your messages, and demanding to know exactly where you are and what time you will be home right from the very beginning of the relationship.
The mechanism they use to justify that surveillance is highly manipulative because they frame it as affection.
Exactly.
They'll say, I'm just checking on you because I'm so concerned about you. I just care about you so much.
They call it love. And it flatters you at first. You think, wow, this person is really into me. They're so protective.
But that is the trap of control disguised as care.
Control disguised as care. That's a great phrase.
True concern and healthy protective instincts require time and mutual emotional investment to build. When it happens right out of the gate, it is a toxic sign of boundary testing.
They're testing the fences.
Exactly. They are establishing a precedent of surveillance early on, disguised as flattery, just to see how much of your autonomy you are willing to surrender.
Protecting yourself means clearly stating that your privacy matters and then taking actual action if they keep crossing that line, like locking your phone or simply refusing to report your location every hour.
Which is easier said than done.
Right, because taking that action opens up a terrifying vulnerability for the listener. And this brings us to an awesome question from Priya in India, because the moment you actually enforce that privacy, the dynamic fundamentally shifts. You have to be prepared for the immediate backlash.
The pushback.
Exactly. Priya asks, what happens when you set these boundaries, you hold firm, and the person's behavior actually gets significantly worse? Does that mean the boundary was a mistake?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is perhaps the most vital psychological dynamic to understand in this entire deep dive. When you enforce a boundary, you are threatening the one thing a narcissistic individual craves above all else, which is complete control.
Yeah.
You are proving that they are no longer the author of your reality.
Because boundaries expose the fact that they are not in charge of your mind, your time, or your choices anymore.
Exactly. They perceive a boundary as an existential threat to their dominance. So naturally, they escalate.
It gets worse before it gets better.
Much worse. Psychologists sometimes call this an extinction burst. It's a temporary increase in the frequency and intensity of a negative behavior when the reward for that behavior is suddenly removed.
So they might argue significantly harder.
Oh, absolutely. They might heavily increase the guilt trips. They might suddenly become freezing cold and punish you with the silent treatment.
Or they completely flip the script, play the victim, and suddenly start crying to trigger your built-in empathy reflex.
Yes, whatever worked in the past, they turn the dial up to 10. And this is where the illusion completely traps you. You set a boundary, maybe for the first time in your life, and suddenly the chaos multiplies. You sit there looking at the explosion, and you think, oh no, I made a massive mistake. My boundary caused this. I am the problem. I should have just kept the peace.
But that is the escalation illusion. The core realization here is that the boundary did not create the problem.
No, it did not.
The boundary revealed the problem. Let me just repeat that, because it is the linchpin of this entire philosophy. The boundary did not create the problem. It revealed it.
It's like lifting up a heavy rock in your garden and seeing all the hidden bugs scatter.
Yes.
Lifting the rock didn't magically spawn the bugs. It just exposed what was already living in the dark.
When they escalate, they are showing you the exact lengths they will go to in order to maintain their dominance over you. It is vital that you hold firm during this phase and do not allow yourself to be confused by these shifting tactics.
You have to ride out the extinction burst.
Right. Their escalation is the absolute proof that your boundary was desperately needed in the first place.
Spot on.
So if setting a boundary just reveals the underlying toxicity, that leads us directly to the inevitable final question. We got this from Sophia in Canada, and it is the question everyone asks when they are lying awake at night, completely exhausted by the relationship. Can a highly narcissistic person ever truly change?
This is the hardest truth to face in the source material. It is a bitter pill to swallow, but the answer is usually no.
Why is that mechanism so permanently broken? Like, why is fundamental change so impossible for them?
Because true behavioral change requires deep self-reflection, a genuine capacity for empathy, and a willingness to acknowledge wrongdoing. Narcissistic individuals typically lack the internal mechanism for genuine accountability.
They just don't have it.
They fundamentally do not believe they are wrong. They believe the world is failing to accommodate them. Furthermore, think about the current dynamic. You do all the compromising, you do all the apologizing, and they get all the benefits. That works perfectly well for them.
Yeah, why fix what isn't broken for them?
Exactly. Why would they dismantle a system that serves their needs?
But they do promise to change. That is what keeps people hooked. Following a massive blow up, they will say, I get it now. I see what I did. I will go to therapy. I will be better.
It's a mirage. Any sudden change or tearful apology following a boundary enforcement is almost always a temporary tactic. It's a reset button, not a reflection of growth.
A reset button. Wow.
They deploy it because they feel their control slipping away. The apology is designed to trigger your hope. But the moment they feel they've regained access and secured your compliance, the old patterns inevitably return. You cannot force someone else to have a genuine epiphany.
Here's where it gets really interesting and where the ultimate mindset shift happens for you, the listener. You have to stop asking the question, how do I get them to understand my pain?
That is a dead-end street.
It really is. You are trying to translate your emotional language to someone who does not speak it. You have to replace it with a completely different question. What is this relationship doing to me?
Yes, this raises an important question about your own internal state. You must move your analytical focus away from their motivations and focus entirely on your own physiological and emotional reality.
Are you growing, or are you actively shrinking yourself just to avoid conflict? Like, think about a toxic workplace.
Oh, that's a great context for this.
Yeah, you have a boss who constantly humiliates the staff, takes all the credit for your ideas, and bites your head off if you offer any constructive feedback. You keep telling yourself that if you are just professional enough, if you just work a little harder, it will get better.
Then it doesn't.
No. Month after month, you feel smaller. Your shoulders are constantly tense. You are exhausted by 2 p.m.
In that scenario, you have to weigh your core self-worth against your paycheck. At some point, the repeated exposure to that daily toxicity is rewiring your nervous system and damaging your life at home. Finding an exit strategy before deep systemic burnout sets in becomes the only logical form of self-protection.
And the exact same logic applies to romantic relationships. If you are stuck in an endless loop where your partner blows up, disrespects you, and then delivers a hollow, tearful apology.
The reset button.
Right, the reset button. Only to do the exact same thing a week later. The words might change, the promises might sound incredibly sincere in the moment, but the pattern remains identical. That repeated behavior is the only truth you should be listening to.
You have to ask yourself, how long does it take? How many times do you need to prove you are the bigger person?
Yeah.
How many cyclical apologies do you need to hear before you recognize the underlying lie? Protecting yourself does not begin with finally winning an argument and getting them to admit they were wrong. It begins with trusting what their repeated behavior has already shown you.
Which brings us to the summary of this whole deep dive. If you take nothing else away from Frank Vasquez's advice today, let it be this. Protecting yourself starts with radical honesty about the patterns in your life.
Radical honesty, yes.
It means establishing calm boundaries that you enforce with physical action, drastically reducing your instinct to over-explain your feelings to people committed to misunderstanding you, and ultimately trusting your own reality. You do not need to prove the validity of your pain by suffering beyond reason.
You certainly do not need to endlessly beg for baseline respect. Because without mutual respect, there is no relationship worth fighting for in the first place. You are just managing a hostage negotiation.
That is so true. There is one core philosophy from the source material that just absolutely anchored itself in my mind, and it is the golden rule I want everyone to remember today. You must refuse to burn yourself to keep someone else warm.
That's powerful.
Let me say that again. Refuse to burn yourself to keep someone else warm. Do not sleep on the cold floor just to make sure someone who disrespects you is perfectly comfortable.
I love that. And I want to leave you with one final thought to ponder long after this audio stops. Think about the physical exhaustion, the brain fog, or the sudden spiking anxiety you feel when you are around certain people in your life. What if that feeling isn't a flaw in your communication skills?
Oh, wow.
What if it is actually your own body acting as an early warning system? A biological alarm bell telling you that your boundaries are being tested and your emotional energy is being siphoned. Next time you feel that sudden, unexplainable emotional drain in someone's presence, pause, take a breath, and ask yourself, who is currently holding the thermostat to my peace of mind?
Who is holding the thermostat? Such a powerful question to carry with you. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into self-preservation. Stay safe, stay aware, and remember, you do not have to fix what you did not break. Take care of yourself